Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to take several of the built-in Excel functions to extract out, parse out substrings of text from a huge long string of text. It's an actual real-world use case that I came across last week and I wanted to show you what I'd come up with. But before then, if you'll take a minute to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, I would certainly appreciate it. And please feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback. So without further ado, let's get started. In this video, I wanted to show you how to take a huge text string and parse out all the values into a column. So I had a situation this week at work where I had this text string. I actually copied what was a table in a PDF over to Excel, and it didn't work out as well as I thought because it ended up being this long text string, very similar to this. But there's a repeating pattern. You can see here where there's pricing, there's part numbers, and it's a repeating pattern because it did come out of a table. So I thought, well, I've got to figure out a way to put this back into that kind of same format so I can use it and I can work with it in Excel. So I had to use a few of the old functions, the built-in functions in Excel that I've used before, and get kind of creative, and I wanted to show you how I did that. I looked at the situation. If you notice in this case, obviously this is a repeating pattern. So I thought to myself, how do I split this out? You know, where do I start? So I noticed that there's this $ for all the prices, and I thought, you know what? That's kind of a single text string that repeats through each one of these iterations that I can use and I can key off of. And so that was kind of my starting point. So let's go down here. I'm going to go down to cell A3, and I'm going to start by using the find function. And so if you notice here, all this does, if you're not familiar with it, it returns the starting position of one text string within another text string. And in this case, I'm going to choose the $, right? So I'm going to open my parentheses, and my first argument is find text, and that's going to be my $. So I'm going to put that in double quotes, and then my comma, and then my next argument is going to be with the within text, which is this big blob of text in cell A1. And I'm going to press F4 to lock that in place. So as I copy this down, it'll still continue to refer to that same text string in cell A1. And then my start number is actually going to be each previous result of this actual formula. And I know that may sound a little convoluted, but let me just explain it to you. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to refer to this cell that has no value at all, because I want to find the first $ in this string. But my starting position or my start number can't be a 0 or can't be nothing or no value, so I'm going to put a +1. And so that's actually going to make a 1. And so now it tells me my first $ is actually at position 34. I'm not going to go in here and count to 34 and show you, but you can see, and you know, you could actually validate that yourself. So if I copy this down, now it's going to tell me the second $ is at 73. But notice in the formula here that my starting position is actually A3 plus 1, which is 34 plus 1 or 35. So that way it's not recounting the same or the first $. It's actually giving me that, you know, each subsequent $. So this is a good way to start. This is a good way to start the concept of this. And so if I copy this down a few more rows, there's a whole bunch of rows, so we'll get to that in a minute. So the key to this is I'm going to use the mid function. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but if you haven't, I'll just go ahead and type this, and it tells you here it returns the characters from the middle of a text string given a starting position and a length. So those are the criteria we need. We need to know the starting position and the actual length of the string of text for each row that we want to do this for, right? So let me open the parentheses. Okay, so our text is going to be A1. And F4 to lock that. And our start number should be this space. Well, it should be the first position for this first one. And then each subsequent substring is going to start with that L on the part number. So that's going to actually start one beyond the space after each price. So how do we figure that out dynamically? Well, we've already figured out where the position of the dollar or each subsequent $ is. So what I really need to know is what position that space is after each $. So how do I do that? So let's go back here. We can actually use this value we've already gotten by finding the position of the each $. So I'm going to do find, and this is going to be find space, and I'm going to find it within our original text string. And we're going to lock that because we're going to copy this down. And then my start number is actually going to be this value here, because that's the $, and I want the first space after each $. So that's going to be 39. And now if I copy that down or fill that down, I'm going to have my start number, or actually the position of the space, after each subsequent $. So real quick, again, for the mid function, we need the text, which is obviously our original text. We need a start number, and we need the number of characters. So we know the number of characters is actually going to be 39, because that's the position of the space right before the next catalog number. So let's do this. Let's go ahead, put that text in there, F4. Our start number in this case is going to be, I'm going to use this same trick. I'm going to use a blank cell +1 and then number of characters. And I'm going to lock this at 30 at this cell with 39, because that's going to be constant. So we'll close that parentheses. And so you see what I get here. I get this first set of data from the beginning of the first catalog number through the end of the price. And now if I copy that down, I'm getting consistently, I'm getting the second one, because if you'll notice here, let's look at our arguments here. So as I copy this down, my text argument stays constant, which is what we want. My start number is going to be B3 +1, so it's going to be that first space after the $ +1, which is that position of that first digit of that next catalog number. And then of course the length or number of characters remains constant at 39. So let's escape there and let's fill this down, and notice how going all the way down, however many catalog numbers this is at this point, what do we got, 11, we're getting what we want. And so let's expand this out. Let's do one little thing here. How do I know, without just filling these formulas down until I get errors, that how many of these rows do I actually need? Well, I don't really know by looking at this. I mean, you can look at this original data, and there's no way to really count. There is actually a way we can count in Excel, and that's to count the number of, let's say, $ again. So how do we do that? So if you've never used the LEN function, it gives you the length of an entire string of text. So if I wanted to get the length of everything that's in cell A1, I can use this formula, LEN, and then just the text. And so that tells me there's 4,675 characters. Well, what good does that do? Well, it's going to do us a lot of good here, because we're going to use this other little formula that allows us to substitute. We can actually do LEN, substitute, and notice our arguments here. We need the text, the old text, and the new text. We're going to ignore instance number, but our text here obviously is the same thing we've been working with. Old text is the $, and then the new text is actually going to be nothing. It's not a space, it's double quotes, so it's nothing. So what we're doing is essentially removing all of the $, and then we're going to get a length of the new string if those $signs never existed in this original string. And so that's 4,556. Well, the difference between the two is going to tell us how many $signs got removed. So it's actually going to tell us how many of these values or how many of these rows we actually need. So I'm just going to do something simple here, equals this minus this. And so we need 119 rows. So let me go ahead, let's go to A122. So we're at A122. I'm going to press Shift and the arrow key over 2 times, and then Control Shift up, and then Control D, and it's going to copy all my formulas down. And I believe that's going to be, well, we want one too many. Should have been 121. All right, so we've got that. So that gives you all 119 rows. Let's validate that. So this is what? LS312 03190. And then we'll go to our original string here. If we go all the way down, LS312 03190 for sure. 1199, and yeah, there you have it. So kind of a convoluted step-by-step way to do this. Now the challenge for you is, if you want, you can replace these cell references for these other formulas and actually combine those formulas in this one large mid formula to be able to parse out each one of these that needs to be on its own row in this one big huge blob or big long string. So there you have it. Thanks for taking a look. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. Check out the blog post for this. I'll leave that as a link in the description below, and have a great day.